Welcome to the DFS Build NBA edition. I'm Kevin Roberts, going to go down over the DraftKings two-game slate for Wednesday, May 1st. Welcome to May and the end of the run for the Miami Heat. They are surely going to lose to Boston. That series is over. Boston is up 3-1, and they are 14-point favorites. So, yeah, it's not going to be good. Yesterday wasn't good. Yesterday was abysmal for me across the board, MLB and NBA. Big loss, big loss. So hopefully you found a way to cash and maybe even get a takedown somehow, some way. If you didn't have maxing NBA, good luck. So it wasn't good. And, we can say goodbye to those 3 and 4 game slates too. We are looking at a 2-game slate now and forever until NBA DFS is gone. But it should still be fun because it's NBA DFS. This video is sponsored by DFS Hero, cool lineup optimizer. You can see the projections right here in front of you that I'm going to use for this slate. You can give them a shot and get a 15% off discount if you use the link in the video description below. I can barely talk today. Let's correct that starting now. All right, so here we go. We got Heat against the Celtics. Like I said, it's a 14-point spread. Ugly 200 total. Miami with a 93 implied team total. It's not looking good. That is going to be the case when you're without Jimmy Butler, Terry Rozier, and now also Jaime Jaquez. So they are extremely shorthanded, meaning you can play just about any Heat and feel somewhat good about it just because they need guys. But let's look at this. Bam Adebayo. It's funny because last time I looked at the Heat, I was like, oh, I love Tyler Hero. I was like, Bam Adebayo's okay. And then what does Adebayo do? He just goes off for 54 fantasy points, and Hero got like 30. He was not that good. So I'm just going to say now without 3 key players, you can play both Bam and Hero. They're both totally fine. Their prices are not egregious. Their projections are solid. Bam is the better play in a vacuum just because he's coming in with a projection better or 6-point projected. He's projected by 6 more points than Hero on the slate. He has a 27% boom rating, which is 10 points higher than Hero's. So across the board, Bam does look like the better play. I think both look really good. I mean, we're looking at all the usage that exits Miami's rotation right now. These guys are looking at a lot of shots, a lot of playmaking. So you can pair them. You can play one and stand on one and be done with them. That's fine. But they both look good. My lean right now would be Bam. He is a little bit chalkier, but both these guys are going to be owned, 27 and 30% owned. So I wouldn't worry that much. If you're going to go for the Heat, just go for the Heat and, don't look back. I'm a little bit more interested in the value, though, just because it's a Luka slate, and I actually think with just 2 games and Luka's ceiling, kind of want to pay for Luka. So more interest in the value. Caleb Martin played a ton in the last game and played well. He's 5.4K. Too cheap. Now that Jaquez is out, those minutes are very much solidified. I'm big time on Caleb Martin. A little worried about Nikola Jovic just because he wasn't in foul trouble or anything, and his minutes just disappeared last game. I do think Jaquez not being able to play this game does make that less of a concern. So Jovic is still very much in play at 5.2. The cool thing is neither of these guys are coming in that owned. So I think their projections are a little bit low. And I do expect their ownership to spike a little bit just because they look like good value. But they both look good. Haywood Highsmith, DeLon Wright, Duncan Robinson, and even Patty Mills. Even Kevin Love. All these guys are potentially in play because we don't have Jaquez anymore. Before Jaquez went down, he was putting up 30 to 35 minutes depending on the game. And somebody's got to eat those minutes. Patty Mills did play 22 minutes last game, and DeLon Wright returned and played 29. So those are the guys who are kind of eating up the guard minutes left by Rozier. They're both playable on a 2-game slate for sure. My lean would be DeLon Wright just because he's not absolutely washed like Patty Mills is. But both are in play. Take your chances with whoever you like a little bit better. I lean DeLon for sure. I guess the way to talk yourself into Mills would be he is $700 cheaper, and right now he's not owned, whereas DeLon Wright is carrying ownership at 18%. So if a lot of people are going to be on DeLon Wright, you can very well talk yourself into Mills for like no ownership. The only problem is he sucks. Duncan Robinson and Kevin Love, right now, as things stand, I do not trust them at all, and Haywood Highsmith is kind of in that same territory for me. But without Jaquez, one of them could end up starting, or one of them could end up playing 20, 25 minutes off the bench. So I would like to get some kind of information to the point where we can feel confident about that decision. But in tournaments on a 2-game slate, you absolutely can try them out. If you're doing a lot of lineups, you absolutely should sprinkle them in. But yeah, for the most part, Bam and Hero look great. They're very safe. And Caleb Martin is my favorite value that the Heat have to offer. The only problem is they're probably going to get destroyed. So, like I said, I'm leaning more towards the value. For Boston, Porzingis is out. So that makes Al Horford at 5.5K a core play for me. I don't really care if he's chalky, and he very well is. 46% ownership right now. That's probably going to be higher if you go into a single entry. I'm okay with that. I don't really care. You could do a punt with somebody like Sam Hauser or Luke Cornett just because Porzingis is out. Those guys could get a little bit more run. I lean towards Sam Hauser just because he's already in the rotation and he's cheaper. But 2-game slate, going to 2-game slate, you can absolutely look at Cornett as the last guy in for value. Maybe even Xavier Tillman. But, I mean, obviously these are DNP risks too, so you want to be a little bit careful. Derek White, his price rose by $700. He absolutely smashed last game and pretty much broke the slate. So he's 6.6K now, coming off a 57-point fantasy outing. He's going to play a ton. He's still a good price, so you could double down on him, just being hot and doing it again. But at 42% ownership, I'm going to take a stand here on a 2-game slate and just assume Derek White is not going to go score 38 real points for the second game in a row. And maybe I'll just be stupid and he does, and then you can fade me and go play Derek White and win all the money. That's up to you. But that's just my personal strategy. If he's going to be that chalky and that's like major recency bias, I'm going to go somewhere else. A couple different places you could go. Pay up for Jaylen Brown at 7.7K. He looks great. Pay all the way up for Jason Tatum at 9.7K. That may involve you fading Luka, though, which I don't really want to do. And it's also a 14-game spread, so that's not really what I want to do. Jaylen Brown feels like the better play there if you're going to go up for Boston. And you could go down, and an immediate leverage would be Drew Holiday. He's carrying 18% ownership, $600 less than Derek White. And obviously he's a low-usage guy, but he could benefit from Porzingis' usage getting spread out a little bit. So I like Drew Holiday a little bit more than I should, but he's not expensive. And he should get a few more shots in there. Peyton Pritchard's minutes did go down in the last game, but at 3.9K in a likely blowout. And with the Boston guys being without one of their key starters, I think he's a pretty good value. I like him quite a bit. He is a little chalky at 25%, but I like him. All right, next game and the last game of the night, we got Dallas at Clippers. Dallas has a 3-2 edge in the series, and there's no Kawhi Leonard for the Clippers and no Tim Hardaway Jr. for the Mavs. Which one matters more, do you think? Going to go with the Dallas side, right? No. Obviously, Kawhi being out is a big deal. We'll get to that in a second. First question you always have to ask yourself on a Luka slate. Luka or no Luka? I'm going Luka tonight. The ownership so far is not egregious. He has the best projection of the slate. He has a 37% boom rating. He's super expensive, but he also just has the best ceiling. Nobody else really can go get like 80, 90 fantasy points, consistently or have a really good chance of doing that. I guess Tatum would be the other guy here. But I'm just going Luka. I'm going to take a stand once again. It's a 2-game slate. You don't have much room for error. You just got to go with it. And I think Luka is going to smash here and end this series. Kyrie at 8.8, reasonably priced, good projection, 26% boom rating. He's actually carrying more ownership than Luka right now, so even more reason to play Luka and not play Kyrie. I think Kyrie's a totally fine play. He's not really expensive enough for who he's been in the playoffs so far, but not really a priority for me. Really like the minutes on PJ Washington, 5.9K. He's really only going to pay off if he shows up as a scorer, but the projection is decent. The ownership isn't out of control. Good price, good minutes. I'm on board with that. Not necessarily a core play, but if he slides into my lineup, I'm totally cool with that. I like him a good deal. Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively are splitting the center minutes. I wasn't going to be on Gafford, but Derek Lively is like double the ownership. He is $600 cheaper. He himself is a decent play. But if he's going to be double the ownership, I actually like Gafford a little bit at 4.6K. Both are viable. I would just lean towards Gafford as an ownership play. Derrick Jones Jr. at 4.3K is my favorite Dallas value. He is benefiting the most from Tim Hardaway Jr. being out. He's probably going to play 30 to 35 minutes. Not always the most reliable points per minute guy, 0.6 on the year. Ugh, not great, I know. But he's out there, he's playing, he can get blocks, he can get rebounds, he can get steals, he can hit some threes. At 4.3K, I'm willing to roll the dice. And the crazy thing is, at 20% ownership, he's not really owned enough on a 2-game slate. So hopefully that sticks. You can also look at Dante Exum, Josh Green, Maxi Kleba. Of that three, Kleba looks the most safe. He's actually been getting the most minutes of that trio. He's only 3.4K. He's not really that owned at 15%. Green and Exum are just kind of getting like the scrap minutes that are left over, so I don't really trust them very much. Of the two, I guess Green is more trustworthy. He's been getting a little bit more minutes lately. But I hope we don't really have to do that. I don't want to do that. Quick recap. Overall, it's Luka up top for sure. PJ Washington is solid. And I love Derrick Jones Jr. here. All right, on the Clipper side we go. Kawhi Leonard out is pretty massive. Obviously, James Harden and Paul George are both exceptional plays on the slate. They're actually pretty comparable in ownership to Bam and Hero. And considering this is easily the better game of the 2 games tonight, I will gladly pay for these guys across from Luka instead of Bam and Hero. If the ownership tilts and we get to the point where Hero is like 10% owned or Bam is like 15 or something, then we can kind of change our mind there. To some degree, or maybe split it, like go with Bam and Harden or Hero and Paul George, like whatever, right? But right now, they just feel like the way better plays in the way better environment. I'm leaning towards Harden. He's $200 more, but he projects better. He's got 30% ownership, which is 19% lower than Paul George, and he does have a similar boom rating. Both of these guys are going to smash. They're both going to be a threat to get 50-plus fantasy points, no doubt about it. I just think James Harden looks like the better play when you look at ownership, projection, and everything. So, and he's going to have the ball in his hands a lot. He's going to take on more of a duty to score more than usual with Kawhi out. So both are great plays. You can absolutely pair them together too. But if you want to get a little bit of leverage, I think Harden is the better play. Zubac, his price has come up, 6.3K, still reasonable. Double threat, can get blocks. He's going to play 30 to 35 minutes. He's a little chalky at 27%. I wouldn't let that get me off of him. That's not enough to like make me, disinterested. But the price is coming up enough to where I don't think he's an absolute must. It gets really interesting with the Clippers when we talk about the value. Way down low, Amir Coffey at 3.4K. He's probably going to push for 20 minutes with Kawhi out. I think he's probably the best like pure punt of the slate. Still risky because he can get you like 10 fantasy points or lower, but as far as pure punts go in that 3.4K range, he's the best one, I think. Terrence Mann at 4.4K, totally viable. He doesn't really do a lot, but with no Kawhi, his minutes are solidified. The really interesting call is Russ versus Norm Powell. Norm Powell is going to be the chalky play at 35% ownership already. Great play. Great price at 4.7K. He's going to see 30 minutes regardless, but with Kawhi out, he feels like a smash play. No doubt about it. I want Norm Powell. But Russ is only $300 more. He actually projects better. He's the better per minute guy, and he's 14% owned. That's a fraction of what Norm Powell's coming in at. So could we leverage that Norm Powell chalk and go play Russ and break the slate? Maybe we could. So that's one thing to think about. Overall, though, on this slate, I'm looking at stacking the Dallas and Clippers game for the most part. I'll eat into some of that Miami value, maybe go get Pritchard and hope for a blowout for Boston. And then I'm okay going all the way down to Coffee. And just like, honestly, look at how you can leverage ownership. Harden over George, Russ over Powell, those kind of things. Not necessarily always exactly what I say, but just that kind of mentality going in. There's good chalk to be eaten. Like Luka's kind of chalky, and I'm very fine with eating 30 to 40% chalk Luka because I feel like he's the best overall play of the slate. And like Harden is even still chalky at 30%, but we can eat that chalk and fade the chalkier Clipper stud and hopefully gain some leverage. So that's going to do it for this breakdown. Hopefully it helps you a little bit, clears things up for you. At the end of the day, you got to update your lineup optimizer later in the day, find out what the projections are, what the ownership has updated to, and then make those calls yourself. If this video helped you out at all, please give it a like and also consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching and good luck.